Everyone, sir and peers, welcome back to Group 2. This is our second time to present a material, and today we're gonna learn about value-added tax collectors. So this group will break down anything about value-added tax collectors. Now I want to introduce the member in this team. The first, it's me, Rizkawati, and in the middle, my friend Takyudin Amri, and last, Tessa Laurencia. Tax collectors. Based on the law of Republic Indonesia, number 42 of 2009, concerning value-added tax on goods and service and sales tax on luxury goods, Article 1, value-added tax collectors is treasury of the government agency or government agency appointed by the Minister of Finance to collect, deposit, and report tax payable by a taxable entrepreneur on the delivery of taxable goods and or delivery of taxable service to the government, treasury, power or permit holder or contractor or government agency. And the other law regulation, it's come from Article 3A, Paragraph 1, entrepreneur who make the delivery as referred to in Article 4, Paragraph 1, letter A, C, F, G, and H, expect small entrepreneur whose limit are set by the Ministry of Finance are required to report their business to confirmed as taxable entrepreneur and obligate to collect, deposit, and report value-added tax and sales tax on luxury goods owned. Second, it's PKP submission term. PKP, it's referred to pengusaha kena pajak. So in order to obtain the confirmation of a taxable entrepreneur from the Directorate General of Taxes, an entrepreneur, business, or company must meet the following requirements. There are three requirements. The first has a gross income in one fiscal year reaching 4.8 billion rupiah, does not include entrepreneur, business, or company with gross income of less than the numbers billion, unless the entrepreneur chooses to be confirmed as a taxable entrepreneur. The second requirement is passing the survey process carried out by the KPP or KP2KP, where the registration is. The third requirement is complete the document and requirements from submitting PKP or inauguration of PKP. The application to become a taxable entrepreneur is submitted to KPP or KP2KP, whose work area includes the residence, place of domicile, or place of business activity in the tax of the taxpayer. Okay, now who are the entrepreneur required to get PKP confirmation actually? So in additional to having turnover up to 4.8 billion rupiah in 1 year, entrepreneur who are required to get a PKP confirmation are entrepreneur who deliver taxable goods and taxable service within the customer area and or export tangible taxable goods. Export service taxable and or intangible taxable goods are required to: the first, report their business to be confirmed as a taxable entrepreneur. The second, collect taxable taxes owned. Third, deposit VAT that still has to be paid in the event that the output tax is greater than input tax, which can be credited, and deposit the sales tax on luxury goods payable. And then the last or the fourth, report the collection, deposit, and a calculation of taxes no later than the end of the following month. Before we already know the requirement to become taxable entrepreneur and how to get the PKP confirmation, and now we want to know the registration document and form to prepare to become taxable entrepreneur. So in addition to the PKP registration form that you need to download, there are something that you need to download first. The following documents must be submitted to KPP to fulfill the requirements for submitting PKP and obtaining PKP confirmation. And it is divided into three. The first is individual taxpayer, second corporate taxpayer, and the third is corporate taxpayer from joint operation. For the individual taxpayer, there are three documents that should have to fulfill. The first is photocopy of KTP for Indonesian citizen or photocopy of kitas or kitab for foreigners. The second, document of business activity permit issued by the authorized agency. The third is certificate of business activity or independent work from a regional government official, at least the lurah or a village head. Second is for corporate taxpayer. There are about four documents should have to fulfill. The first is photocopy of deed of establishment or document of establishment or amendment for domestic corporate taxpayer or certificate of appointment from the head office for permanent establishment or BUT, Badan Usaha Tetap, which is legalized by the authorized official. The second is photocopy of NPWP card of one of the administrator of photocopy of password and the residence certificate from the local government official, at least the lurah or village head, if the person in charge of the companies it is a foreigners. The third, document of business and or activity license issued by authorized agency, and then the fourth, certificate of place of business activity issued from a regional government official, at least the lurah or village head. The third, it's for corporate taxpayer forms joint operation. It's about five documents should have to fulfill. The first is photocopy of corporation agreement or deed of establishment as a form of joint operation, which is legalized by the authorized official. The second, photocopy of NPWP card of each member in the form of joint operation, which is required to have an NPWP. The third is photocopy of NPWP card of an individual from one of the management company member in the form of joint operation, or photocopy of password in the event of that the person is charged in foreigners. The fourth is document of business activity permitted issued by the authorized agency, and the last is certificate of place of business activity from a regional government official, at least the lurah or village head, for both domestic corporate taxpayer and foreigner corporate taxpayer. Okay, now beside the document should fulfill by the third subject to become a taxable entrepreneur, there are another document usually appears on it. There are first proof of rent or ownership of business premises, photo of the room or place, businesses, location map, invoice signature, that's form provided by KPP, and photocopy of invoice signatures, property list or office inventory, financial statement, and last annual tax return. Okay class, before we already know that the entrepreneur, business or company who having gross profit in 1 year is up to 4.8 billion rupiahs have to report their business to become taxable entrepreneur. And also we already know the document they should fulfill and how to get PKP confirmation from the Directorate General of Taxes. And now comes the question, is that all the candidates who submit their application will be directly accepted? The answer is no. There are some application will be rejected by the Director General of Taxes, and it is have third reason for that. The first is does not meet all the requirement for applying for PKP. The second is officers doubt about the legitimacy and feasibility of the company, so there are anything doubt that it is not legitimate first to the entrepreneur. And the last reason is employers submit BKP or JKP which are excluded or not the object of VAT. Okay. Next, it is just I think additional information to you guys that Indonesian right now also put the taxes to the digital goods and service. Because the government Indonesian want to create a level playing field for the all business. So the business that sell digital goods and service to Indonesian customer is obligated to charge 10% VAT, and non-resident supplier of intangible goods and digital service within Indonesia may be appointed as the value-added tax collector as of July 1, 2020. There are two regulations issued for that. The first is Minister of Finance Regulation number 48/PMK 03/2020 relating to the procedures for the appointment of VAT collectors, collections and payment, and reporting of digital VAT. And from Director General of Taxes Regulation number PR 12/PG/2020 pertaining to the threshold for VAT collector criteria, appointment of VAT collectors, collection and reporting of the digital VAT. Now the last but not least from me, we are gonna talking about revocation of the confirmation of the taxable entrepreneur. Okay, before we talk about untaxable entrepreneur become taxable entrepreneur, and now how the taxable entrepreneur not become taxable entrepreneur anymore in the future. So this is the revocation of the integration of the PKP is a step taken when the status of the taxable entrepreneur is deemed unable to fulfill by the PKP. This PKP revocation step is carried out at the request of the PKP or carried out by the Directorate General of Taxes directly, who feels that the PKP in question no longer meets the requirements as a PKP. And this is have to do, first it's fulfill out the PKP integration revocation form. The application for revocation of the PKP integration is carried out by submitting a written application, and second, send form to registered KPP. After that, the form and its attachment are submitted to the tax service office KPP where the PKP is confirmed. So the period of revocation of the PKP confirmation is no longer than 6 months from the date of receipt of the complete application by taxpayer. Okay, maybe that's all from me, and next will be continued by my friend Tessa.
Hello everyone, I'm Tessa Lorenza. I'm going to explain about the collector of value-added tax on taxable entrepreneur, TKP. So, collector of value-added tax on taxable entrepreneur divided into three according to the direction of the Minister of Finance. The first one is Government Treasurer, Treasury Office, and State Treasury. So what is Government Treasurer? Government Treasurer are treasurer or officials who make payments for transactions with an interest in the government. Transaction funds come from the APBN, net budget, or APBD, local revenue and expenditure budget. This government treasurer consists of treasurer of the central and local government. So it can be concluded the following are institutions that are still included in the government treasurer. The first one, treasurer of the central and local government. Second, an official appointed directly by the minister of the institution as treasurer. Third, Directorate General of Treasury or the State Treasury Service Office. The second collector of value-added tax is confidential of clerk, concessionaire, or contractor. Based on Article 1, PMK 73, PMK 3/2010, what is meant by confidential of clerk, concessionaire, or contractor are contractors of cooperation contracts with oil and gas entrepreneurs. Then, contractor or confidential of clerk, concessionaire for exploitation of geothermal resources, which included the head office branches or units. Then what is contractor of cooperation contract? So KKS is a party that has a cooperation contract with the government, namely a permanent business entity or company holding management rights in an area that has the right to carry out oil and gas exploitation activities in Indonesia. The third VAT collector is state-owned enterprise, or we call it as BUMN Indonesia, Badan Usaha Milik Negara. BUMN is a business entity whose capital is partly or wholly owned by the state through direct investment originating from state assets. BUMN consists of two types. The first one is Persero, the second is Perum. Persero means which at least 51% of its shares are owned by government, then we categorize it as Persero. Meanwhile, when all capital is owned by the government, then we categorize it as Perum. That's all the explanation about the collector of value-added tax on taxable entrepreneurs. Thank you.
All right, I will continue about the calculation of VAT period. So the definition of the VAT period SPT is the value-added tax report form that must be filled out and reported by PKP. That this report form contains the calculation of the amount of tax, including to report the VAT and luxury goods sales tax payable. In addition to reporting tax payment or settlement, the function of the VAT per SPT is also to report asset and liabilities as well as tax payment from VAT withholding or collectors. The VAT per SPT must be reported every month, even if there is no change in the balance sheets or the value of the rupiah during the related tax period is nil or zero. So the reporting is due on the last day of the following month after the end of the relevant tax period, except in the certain condition as stated in the regulation of Minister of Finance. That is, the maturity date is not at the end of the following month after the end of the relevant tax period. The next is the form of VAT periods SPT 1111. That is, the VAT per SPT must use the electronic document via electronic filing. And the VAT period SPT 1111 is consists of one main form and 6 attachment form. That is the submission and acquisition recapitulation form, the export list form of intangible BKB and intangible BKB and or DKP, the output tax list form on domestic delivery with tax invoice, the input tax list form that can be credited on BKP import and utilization of intangible BKP or DKP from outside the custom area, the input tax list form that can be credited for domestic BKP or DKP acquisition, and then the uncredited or facilitated input tax list form. This VAT per SPT must be used by every PKP other than PKP which use the input tax crediting calculation wet lines for reporting the VAT period SPT starting from the January 2011 tax period. So the next is the content of the VAT period SPT. So the content of the VAT per SPT based on PMK number 243, PMK 03/2014 must contain the following information. That is the tax type, the name of the taxpayer and his NPWP, the taxpayer signature or power of attorney from the taxpayer, the number of submissions, the total tax imposition basis, the amount of output tax, the amount of creditable input forecast tax, the amount of tax under or overpayment, the deposit date, and other data related to business activities of taxpayer or PKP, and then the 1111 VAT period SPT that is used by the individual personal and entities companies. That this VAT per SPT is included in the value added tax category. Okay, next is the definition of the input and output VAT. So the input and output VAT are two terms that are known in the type of VAT tax. They is function to calculate how much VAT taxpayer need to deposit to the government. The input VAT is a tax imposed when a taxable entrepreneur or PKP makes a purchase of taxable good and or taxable service. While the output VAT is a tax that is imposed when the PKP sells the BKP or GKP. That is, if in a period the output VAT tax turned out to be greater than the excess output tax must be remitted to the state. However, if the excess is in the input VAT, then the PKP can get compensation in the next tax period or the PKP can apply for tax refund. So in simple terms, the calculation of input and output VAT is when PKP credits or deduct input tax in one tax period with output VAT in the same tax period. All right, next is the how to calculate the VAT payable. So to find out how much VAT payable must be deposited to the state, first we make a reduction between the output VAT and the input VAT. And then the result of the reduction of output VAT and input VAT is called the amount of VAT payable. From the result of the amount of VAT payable, it will be known that whether the PKP is underpaid, overpaid, or nil. So what is the underpaid, overpaid, or nil? So the underpaid VAT is meaning that PKP must deposit the underpaid VAT to the state treasury, and the overpaid meaning that PKP can make refunds or credit for the next tax period, and zero VAT meaning that PKP does not have underpaid VAT that must be deposited to the state, nor can refund or credit VAT for the next tax period. So for the example of the zero VAT calculation, that is PT A in November 2021 submitted the BKP for the sale of 5,000 pairs of footwear or shoe products with a price per pair of shoe at Indonesian rupiah 5 million. The sale of 5,000 pairs of shoes was made to 4 companies. That is, the following are the details of the VAT output of November 2021. To PTL, it is 250 million, and then PTM is 500 million, PTN is 750 million, and PTP is 1 billion. And then the PTA in November 2021 also purchased taxable good in the form of raw material for footwear production, namely accessories from PTC for 500 million, shoes from PTH for 2 million, and leather material from PTK for 2,500 million. And then the production machine of 15 million from PTJ and other production equipment of it is 5 million from PTK. And then the following are the details of PTA input VAT for November 2021. All right, for the PTC is the accessories 50 million. The PTH is Susol for 200 million. PTK is the leather material for 250 million. PTG is the production machinery for 1,500 million. And PTK is for the production equipment is 500 million. That is for the VAT. So we got the output VAT then the input VAT. So the calculation of VAT payable, that is the result of output and input tax is for the output VAT for November is the from PTL 250 million, PTM 500 million, PTN 750 million, PTP is 1 billion. That is the total VAT output for November is 2,500,000,000. So the input for the VAT input is from PTL 50 million, PTN 200 million, PTN 250 million, PTP is 1,500,000,000, PTK is 500 million. That is the total is 2,500,000,000. Okay, for the VAT payable by PTA, that is we got the output is to 2,500 million, and then the input VAT will be 2,500 million also. So the VAT payable for November is the output minus the input, which is 0 rupiah or nil VAT. And because the VAT is nil, there is no demand for PTA to deposit the VAT underpaid, nor has the right to apply for restitution or credit VAT overpaid. I think that's all from our group. Thank you very much. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.